Someone was asking me about journaling, which I'm going to do my best to keep up with my journal this week. But I did journal, like backtrack and journal, the QQQ trait and feed it to Black Wolf. And so it actually breaks it all down for you. Let me take this risk to reward off. And so so I labeled my chart. You can go to text and just label different things. So Black Wolf was able to recognize where I identified each phase where my entry was. I've been lately notating, like leaving a note for myself of when I make break even on my contracts, and then where I would have taken where I exit. So, if you were wondering, like you could take a snippet of this and feed it to Black Wolf, and then it'll break down your trade for you. Um, and then it gave me like a template when I went through the training of journaling. Like you can ask for a template and it'll go through the whole confirmation system. So if you haven't tried it, I thought that was pretty easy just to take a snippet and label where I entered the trade, where I took my profit. And then it broke everything down, confirming it was a good trade, successful trade. I followed the rules. And so it will do the same thing if I had like a bad entry. Um, maybe miss to take profit on a quick trade for calls or whatever. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm going to be using Black Wolf and just feeding it like a snippet of my trade. So I'm going to try to keep up with labeling my charts that way. Even if it's after I finish for the day, I'll still go back because I realize as long as you have the contract, like the history in your brokerage, you can see what time you went in exactly and what time you exited. You can still go backtrack and label your trades and then just start journaling like that. Let's see who said what. APP Palantir.
I had a question about where you have your exit because I'm looking at this is from Friday, correct?
Yeah.
And that drawdown at the end was just, I don't know if you watched it, but it was horrible. It was like a
What do you mean?
constant, just like right where you got exit.
Hmm.
Did you exit at that end of day or?
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. I know if we were talking peace or if everything would escalate. So I just exit the trade. I had it for a few I forgot how long I had it for. Maybe just until Monday. So I just went ahead and took profit because I had been in the trade since like here. But it did get choppy and then honestly after hours it started like, pumping a little bit actually. Yeah, I think extended hours. It did a little bit. It did this week, like right when market closed.
But that fight from about after 2 o'clock to close was, or three there on your time frame.
Yeah, I really looked at it like this. Like I felt like it's almost like you can see it with the inverse arc, just that double bottom type of formation. So I just kind of figured we'd do sideways trading. Obviously, I think we've gapped down on QQQ. Where are we right now? Hmm.
Because I was in a spy play and I ended up just cashing out break even.
Palantir is not red yet. They're at 137. Is Tesla doing well? Oh, okay. Tesla's up about $3 after hours. Not everything
And
is just terribly red. Okay, so QQQ is down to 523.31. So my goal was to see 524.72. That's what I had labeled. Um, Friday, which it came pretty close. I really should have took profit here and just called it a day, but I want to see if we would hit this order block Friday as well. So I think where we're at right now, 523.31. That's in this order block right here. So for me, under 423, I'm sorry, 522.66. Where was that? That was on the 4 hour. I was paying attention if we would hit the bottom of that, which we may just do that. And then the next gap down would be this order block here around 519, 519.86. But I definitely was seeing that they would swipe through this order block because they kept beating down at it. And it just made more sense for them to come and test the bottom of it. And you know how we'll see like those wicks and then it'll bounce back. I was gonna look to see if we would hold under 522.66. So if we do get under 522.66, they'll likely come down to this next order block on QQQ on the 4 hour. I really don't know, like when we open, how the market truly will react. I mean, they're down $3 right now, which is good if you held a swing in puts. But yeah, the story in QQQ is I'm gonna see really how we open and what was the close for the day. I'll put some more levels in the QQQ tab, pre-market, but the low for yesterday Friday was 524.88. So we're already under that, but we'll see how we open up. I'll be watching this bottom of the 4 hour order block that I have labeled here, and then I'll probably put like a 518 mark just to remind myself. There's another order block that will hit on the 4 hour right here. So that'll be a price to watch. And again, just right now, if you looked at QQQ, they're literally wedged between sellers and buyers. But it looks like the selling pressure took over because now we're almost to this 522 level. So that's my thought. I'm just gonna see how we open up and make my decision. I want to be careful with that 522 66 for sure. Let's see. Someone said was it J and J? Let me go back to chat.
Yeah, J&J, Johnson and Johnson.
Okay, J and J. Are you already in a J and J trade?
No, I was just looking at the chart last week and trying to study it. I think it was too late for an entry when
Mm-hmm.
I was just too chicken because I'm not experienced enough, but
So what was your theory on it? Like where were you what were you looking at?
I looked at the monthly and the weekly and the daily obviously going down, and my question was, could there be an entry here on the daily with the next historical resistance line down at 146? But then when I went to lower time frames, of course, there's order blocks and things, and so then that's kind of where I get stuck.
Okay, so they're in a order block on the monthly too,
Mm-hmm.
which probably this right here is that support you're seeing on the what was that, the daily?
Yeah.
At let's see. So right now they're at support about right here on so you can kind of follow where we are so far. The low so far for June was 149.04. Now, mind you, we're on the monthly. Under 149.04, I would probably just follow each low here. So the low of this could be a challenge, the next test. I think that let's just I'm gonna try to see where that lines up on the other charts. And the low of this order block would be something I'd watch. See how they wick through these order blocks and then they just pop? This is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm watching to see if QQQ will actually do on that 4 hour time frame. It's like a fake out for me. Um, so the weekly, we have the 200 and then we have the 12, and the 12 is pointing downwards. They're both red. So we're under the 200. A strong bullish candle so far from last week. They lost $7 and kind of right at support. If they did go lower, I'm looking at that 146.12 and then that 143. That's just the weekly, so let me zoom in. Okay, here, see the 3 day has been something like a game changer because I never really looked at the 3 day, but you can also see here we'll start hitting some order blocks in the 3 day. It's very bullish once we get around 142. So I think the signals are still saying that they're pointing down. Like even this arc is trying to form under this next under this 3-day candle,
Mm-hmm.
above this 3-day candle. And we could still come down to that order block, which is the target around 146.12. It's all pretty close together.
Yeah, and so do you think that an entry would still be okay here because the that second red candle on the 3-day there is below the 12 and not touching. So that would be would that be our floating candle on the 3-day?
It wouldn't be floating unless it is part of the phases, right? Like so now we're below the 200 and the 12. They're both red and we're getting an arc forming on the 3-day, but the floating would be this candle somewhere here off the
Oh,
12 and breaking that trend line right here.
oh, right. Okay, the trend line. Okay, yeah,
Ideal entry for, I guess, a bullish scenario. Yes, you can write this down. I'm thinking if I look at I'm going to look at some other time frames. It's all signaling like they want to come down more. Um, what I would think is the best entry if you're going to turn bullish on this one really would be trying to catch it in this area, in
right.
this
Okay.
range between 142 and like 137, 137, 136. That would be a nice entry because they have earnings
Mm-hmm.
July 25th. So I would, if you're not taking the ride down, honestly, I would I'll set some alerts in my chart around here, to see where price brings us. And then this may be a good ride before they would post their earnings in July,
Mm-hmm.
if
Okay.
they find support. So, we have to still watch to see when the signal to get in, but I would want to start watching once price gets there. On the daily, you almost have a floating candle, like you can form tomorrow if we close under this trend line and we're already off the 12. It's a lot of pressure, selling pressure here.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes sense that they would take that ride down unless some news really influences a reversal, but they would take that ride down to try to get around this area. 146 could be a good strike price.
Okay.
So like a strike price in between here and here, if it makes sense. So you'll still have to follow like the day and plan your entry. We already had a floating candle. So this is your floating candle when you're looking for one. It's not this one because if we zoom in,
It's
you
touching.
see, yeah, it's still touching. And they do that a lot. They'll break that B breaking the trend line and then they'll come back up to it, but this is what candle would I would really like this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
As a signal that okay, we came back to the trend line, we didn't break back above it. So then the signals are still telling me we're trying to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this candle is interesting. So I'm wondering if we fail, there must be some support somewhere around 149 on a different time frame.
Yeah, see, this is then where I start to get a bit messed up because it's like, okay, well, it's turning. It wants to turn here.
I'm trying to see what's catching it. There's an order block. I mean, a fair value gap here. It hasn't quite got there yet, around 148. I think where it's at now, personally, I wouldn't chase writing it down.
Okay.
That's me personally because I would just want to catch the ride up. So
Yeah.
I would just set some alerts. Um, I'm trying to see where must be some smaller time frames. I just think that candle is interesting that it's being held up right there, but I don't see what's holding it.
Since you mentioned the write up and the earnings, would you wait for an arc before you try to get a call up to earnings, or would you try to play it before that? Because I know time in the bottom's hard.
Timing the bottom is hard. Okay, here's your it was somewhere all the way in the 30-minute. This is what's holding it right now. That was the reaction. So if anything, if it loses that 30-minute, then we know for sure we can come down to 146. I may actually try this down. If we lose this, I'm gonna just put a little alert
I
for myself.
that must be there was a gap up on January 27th is what I have on my notes. I wonder if that's what that order block is from.
It's actually from here.
Oh,
Looks like we had some
Oh,
bullish action around May
yeah, it didn't charge, honey.
May 20,
Oh, did you just put
15.
on when we got back? Oh, okay,
Correct.
go ahead, yeah.
So I think that's what's holding it up right now is right here. And
Come
even
here.
so, there's still a fair
So
value
what?
gap. I'm gonna mute you
Okay,
guys
let's see.
just in case. And then you can just unmute yourself if you were speaking. So that's where we got the support. I don't
Okay.
know. I'll just set an alert on this one to see if it actually comes down to that target. Then that 3 day order block where I was telling you about, like around the 143 and lower. That's a
Yeah.
good area to start buying shares. In that order block, yeah, I think to go into it, you want to start looking to see when we start getting confirmations of an arc, but I wouldn't be like opposed to buying shares in that order block on the 3 day.
Mm-hmm.
That
Okay.
looks good.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
you can start in an order block, especially uh this dark green area right here.
Mm-hmm.
We're respecting that very well. It's historical since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what would cause it to push through something like that. It would have to be some real serious bad news, I guess. Otherwise, what I would think is we come here and we wait to see where we start to find support, and you probably can watch that from a smaller time frame. But we really want that arc to catch it in this order block right here, and you
Yeah.
can see like what happens when it came right here in January, and we got the arc confirmation. It went from like 142 all the way up to like 160. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
one of
Thank
those things
you.
that really, you could actually plan a pretty good trade once you get to that order block. So I would just set some alerts. Now you can write it down. I just would be careful with my strike price, right? I wouldn't want to go out the money. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be mindful that I think we found what was holding it up on the 30 minute. They can definitely crush through that, right? With enough selling pressure. But just something to be careful with. Choose a good strike price. I've
Yeah.
traded J&J before. It worked out.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Um, you're welcome. What was another one? Costco. Hey, I haven't looked at APP in a while either. I can't wait to look at that one. Oh, we have a 3 day arc. We're at the trend line test. So that's when you break the trend line, you make your bullish move, and then you come back to test that trend line. It's almost like you can look at it as an act of support. And this candle right here in the 3 day is very interesting. Right at the trend line, something to watch. Are you in a trade with Costco or are you just curious?
No,
Or-
I'm just curious. I spent most of last week just looking at charts,
Mhm.
I was actually trying to figure out the screener because I was trying to find charts where the candles were right in the 200 cloud and the 12 cloud because but anyway, I never did, but I did come across these other things. So more
Well, send me
learning.
a message of what you're trying to screen. I'll play around. I'm up tonight after a nap, like a really good nap. So
Okay.
maybe I'll play with the screeners out and see if I can figure that out. So
Okay.
Costco, it looks like it just basically pulls touching the cloud. I'm on the monthly chart, so maybe you get these wicks like we see here when it pulled back to the cloud.
Mm,
So maybe you can get some lower wicks going in through that 12. Let's what the weekly looks like. We're getting an arc on the weekly.
mhm,
We're under that trend line. So we tried to break it on the weekly and did not from this high. So as you can see, like we've done some wicks, but no floating candle on the weekly. And now they're right at the 12, and you can see like the cloud is still blue, but the 12 EMA is flipping red. So that might be one to watch for more
mhm.
downside.
Yeah,
It's
because
trying to form that arc on the weekly too.
yeah. And then the next historical resistance is way down under 880, but then you have those two order blocks.
And that's what I would watch, the order blocks. I really watch the order blocks, especially on the larger time frames. And
Mm-hmm.
the darker the green, I just know for sure that's like pretty solid. Or the darker the red order blocks are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, s- Let me see. So you can set an alert on Costco if you're wanting to catch the flip right here.
Yeah.
And from the weekly, if they lose, they've already lost the previous week low. So you could, if you're trying to trade it from the weekly, you can watch to see if this arc forms. Just set yourself a alert
Yeah.
that you're getting the crossover. And let's
But
see,
then would that be like that would be a swing trade then, right? Because
it would be a swing trade betting down. Yep.
getting down and then probably with an expiry after earnings or before.
Now expiration, think 6 to 8 candles out
Oh,
from the
oh,
weekly. So I mean, you're trying to go out. Probably you're gonna
month.
swing out to give this a chance to play out from the weekly. You probably want to give this about a month or two.
Yeah,
Not
okay.
saying that you won't take profit sooner. My thought would be you want to give it some time to play out.
Yeah.
And so I try to stick with that range of getting it. Some people say 3 candles, 3 marching soldiers I've heard, but I just think more like give it 6 candles at least to play
Okay.
out. But honestly, that would be a pretty good trade from the weekly. Anybody else watching Costco?
I don't know how I came across all of
You
this.
were doing some research and it's all bearish. I know
Mhm.
Costco had a really nice pump, so I'm gonna add that one. I just want
Yeah.
to see if this arc will form. I think that if it did, like look at this, $84 in a week. I mean, when it plays out, it could really play out.
Yes. Yeah.
You could even set yourself an alert if you're watching the weekly to see if we start to break the low of last week too.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you wanted to start looking to see when you start accumulating Costco, watch these order blocks on the weekly. So that's if you're following it from the weekly. There could be order blocks somewhere else that's holding it up. And that's when you have to do your top-down analysis to see what would be your obstacles ahead if you take that trade. So here
Mm-hmm.
it is on the daily. This is what's holding it up. We're at the 200, we're at an order block, and under 960, somewhere around this order block. So you can follow that candle, right? So 960.71. Then it can come down and test that trend line, which is right at the bottom of the 200, 945-ish. And then anything under 200 support would be like at 910.
So that would be a good put swing play then.
Yeah, I would wait for this order block from where we are.
Yeah.
Unless you can catch a nice trade on a smaller time frame, just keeping in mind that we're in an order block. And again, sometimes when it starts to get, what I've noticed is when there's really a lot of selling pressure happening in the order block, they
Hmm.
can like wick through it. Even like if it's a order block like this, you see this candle right here where it like
Yeah.
if I zoom in, we were pretty bullish trying to push through this order block and it did that wick and then look at the rejection.
Yeah.
So I see that too in the reverse whenever they're starting to look like bearish in a green order block. Sometimes they'll just wick through it. So the target could be the bottom of this 200 cloud. And if we start flipping this red and losing it, and then you get that crossover too. So this could all play out nice on puts if we were losing that order block.
Right. Okay.
I wouldn't chase puts with a daily order block right here personally,
No. Okay.
but definitely one to watch. I set an alert for that arc on the weekly, and I'll probably come back and put some reminder if we lose this order block.
Mm-hmm. And so this being the daily, so probably within 5 days we should see something if it's going to go down to the bottom of that order block and to the trend line. That would be, well, maybe 1 to 2 weeks because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candles, 10 red candles, and then the 11th red candle is that last one there with the top and bottom wicks.
Yeah,
where
this is an interesting spot for it because again, it's at the 200
mm-hmm,
and here's the play on the 200 right here and you see that the reversal happened.
mm-hmm.
Um, so I would watch it. I'm always cautious when we fall to the 200 and interestingly enough, this is in at the 200 and that order block. So I would definitely watch this one to see how it plays out. Because it
Yeah,
could just actually give you a signal. If this arc catches it right here,
yeah,
then that'll change things of what we saw in the weekly.
right. Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, maybe it'll come back and pop up to this 12 and see if it can try to reclaim it. And then the bullish scenario would be to come back and challenge this fair value gap right here.
Yeah. So to reclaim the 12, we would have to have a candle that opens and closes above that 12 on the daily.
Yes. If
Okay.
if you're trading it from the daily. So it really you're gonna watch your time frames, but even if I took a trade from a smaller time frame, I still would be mapping out where the target could be from the daily. Like it could just really come back to this support, this resistance line right here,
Yeah.
which is about right at the 12 and in the 12 cloud. And then to truly reclaim it and get that true signal, it'll have to break above it. And we have resistance here, um, resistance here, and then that order block. So it just depends on what time frame you're going to trade it from, but I'm always going to just be aware of like if I was looking at the daily, where would it go? And probably the 12 would be the test
Mm-hmm.
because we're already at the 200. So if we try to pop and respect that 200 in this order block, next test is the 12, but your strike would probably have to be like this 995 or
Yeah.
lower.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we had paused. You guys let me know what you're looking at for the week. APP and then Palantir. APP. Oh, okay. I have an Anchor VWAP on here. What is this VWAP from? Earnings. Okay, so I have an Anchor VWAP from their earnings on February 12th. And where are we? We're at the 200, which is literally right on the Anchor VWAP. And this is the daily chart. Are you in a trade for APP or are you just looking to see what's some scenarios?
Well, I actually did try to trade APP on Friday and totally lost. I reviewed it on Saturday with Andrea, and yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. It was a really I did a put, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I ended up losing about $250, which normally I never lose. Like I hardly ever make any trades, but um, I don't lose more than $50. But I felt so confident. I thought I had it figured out on that one on Friday. And so I tried it and I lost right away. And then I tried it again and I was like, damn, lost again. And so that was it. I was done.
So you traded it, lost, and then traded it again and lost?
Yes, ma'am. On the
I'm glad you reviewed. I'm laughing because that's like our thing. Like I'm gonna get back in it. I'm like that revenge trade.
Yeah, because I was like, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? And what did I miss here? And I had all of my zones mapped out. I had done liquidity levels, and I don't know. I got in on
Mm-hmm.
the wrong candle, almost at the bottom of that downtrend, right from 9:30 in the morning. And as soon as I opened the trade, um, the price started to move sideways and up, and it went up. Yep. And then the second one,
Oh,
I think was
yeah.
around 12:30 Eastern. And again, at the very bottom is where I got in the trade. And of course I lost
Okay. So
twice.
let's walk. That's okay. I mean, it happens. I've done it, especially
Yeah.
when I want to win. Like that mindset. Of, I'm gonna get it back. So
Yeah.
um, let's see. So okay? So this would have been the morning opening. Did you try pre-market? Or did you have your pre-market set?
Uh,
That was a nice
I
break.
don't recall. It's not on my chart now, but I may have deleted it because I I don't remember if I checked pre-market on that one.
It's a nice break, but you're absolutely right. The sideways trading. Were you in ODTEs or
No, 1 week, June 27th, and
okay.
the second trade I took, I set my expiry for or sorry, June 27th, and the second one I set for July the 18th, and I lost on that one too.
Okay. By the way, Costco is down $5 pre-market. I
Oh,
mean after hours, so I'm gonna watch that.
well,
APP, let's see. Which go figure they're down $5 right now. They're at 318. So you had
oh,
time on your contracts. The sideways trading must have been somewhere they must have caught some support, like an order block.
yeah.
But they're right now at 318. I'll have to watch that. Um, so I'm just so you enter the trade at opening.
Yeah, let me check my notes here. Costco, 9:39
A
a.m.
APP, APP.
Oh, APP, sorry,
That's okay.
9:57
950. Is that Central or Eastern?
Eastern.
Eastern. So that would have been 857. Okay, yeah. So most of the move happened.
Yeah,
Okay, so most of the move happened.
yeah.
And so all of you got right here was just a lot of sideways trading. Okay, I see. Now it's actually doing the next leg down because it's at 318. It's just your entry was a bit late from the break, and we have to see what was catching it. Because puts was the win, but look, it ran right to the 200. That's one thing.
Yeah.
It
See,
ran
like
right there.
it blows my mind because like I think I'm understanding and I can read the charts and I know where the entries should be and I don't know where I'm getting caught up between uh the 5 minute time frame, which is usually what I'm watching to make an entry. I don't know what's tripping me up.
I think you may want to go back to look at liquidity mapping to see to where they're targeting in in your trades. Try
Hmm.
that to add to your ammo. Me personally, before I take the trade, one thing I do like to watch, and I don't know what, so let me ask you this, what brought APP to your attention?
Oh, that screening I was doing
Okay,
again.
you're screening. Okay.
Yeah, I used the screener and I just came across all like I was playing with different parameters and different familiar charts would come up that I've seen talked about in Discord. So APP, Costco, and when I saw this one, I was like, okay, well this one's familiar. So I just went and looked at it. I always start on the monthly and work my way down and then, you know, mark lines and liquidity and then go, oh, well, this looks good.
Look where it fell though. I mean, on the monthly, it's right at this fair value gap. It's just very bullish support.
Hmm.
Um, it just would require some strong selling pressure. But again, they're already at, did I say 318? So they're still a little weak here, but the thing is, even on the monthly, they're falling right into a fair value gap.
Yeah.
And so that one I would be cautious if I didn't catch the trade. That's what influences the sideways trading too, right? So when you got to the target, so it bottomed right at this support line right here as the lowest point, 321.
Hmm.
And on the monthly, I want to see something. Yeah, so it's basically just right now challenging this candle, the previous month's candle, which was extremely bullish. It really is almost right at the anchor VWAP when I look at it from the monthly chart. They're
Hmm.
still kind of going in your direction. So I don't I I just think your entry was off. Because when you look at it, they're just gonna fall into a lot of support. I'm sure there's some support too if we just keep going like the 200 on the 2 week we're at the 12. So it's like you got to kind of scan and just make sure it makes sense to jump into the trade. I think you
Mm-hmm.
had direction right because they're still going down as of, oh, look at this right here. So this was created on, uh, this is a 3-day, and the 3-day has a fair value gap that we got from the candle on May 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And so price came back to that. So you're just falling right into support. So it's just as it gets closer to these targets, which are your entry is up here.
Yeah.
And so and your target is to get to this fair value gap. So maybe add the 3-day to your analysis too, because I found that things I didn't see in other time frames, I'm seeing in the 3-day that would influence my trade.
Mm-hmm.
And so this would have told me, okay, if I take that trade, now it depends on where we were at Monday when I was deciding to take that trade, my what my wiggle room would have been, and then that also influences your strike. So you could still play it to the downside, but you're probably going to want to have a much better strike price, not too far out the money if your target is right and is near. So each day, each 3-day candle, we were getting closer to this fair value gap.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have just
And
had this as a line on my chart to follow through all time frames.
I see. Okay.
So something to map out is just try to like go through the charts to see what could hold as support or cause your trade to not be as profitable. Now, granted, again, I think if you would have went in the money and had a better entry, you would have profited because it was a down day
Yeah, I totally
for
should have
them.
profited.
Yeah. And I think still like even holding it, unfortunately, I think you would have still probably came out a little bit better. Now, I don't know the premium, I don't know the Greeks on your trade, but they're still coming down. So I mean, they may try to challenge this 308 support, but it's
Yeah.
just a lot of support that as you've seen on a daily, 3-day. So they lost $19.
Yeah.
So it was a profitable day, and that's probably where int. Let me go back to your 5-minute chart.
Yeah.
So it was here, but it's almost like this would have been your candle. Like this candle
Yeah.
probably right here would have been your candle, and
Yeah.
your strike price has to be probably here. You want your strike price to be your nearest support or resistance.
Yeah.
If you're not going to go in the money or right at the money, you need to target at least your nearest. So if you're trading it here, you want your strike price to be here for the best scenario. Because what
Yeah.
if we catch support right here?
Yeah. Then
And
it,
it did, and then it plays out. So you would have hit your strike right here, and it would have actually came down a little bit lower for you. I would have been out when I seen all of this coming together.
yeah. So if I would have got in at the right candle and set my strike at that resistance, that historical resistance line, if the price would have started to turn and go back to the upside, I could still get out of that trade with profit at that point, right? Or if I set my strike price at around the top of the red candle of that entry candle, I would still be in profit.
The chances are more likely. Now, I don't know the Greeks, but the chances would be more likely you would be more in profit. I don't know if you what your strike price was, but to see a better scenario, target your near, especially in the 5-minute, target your nearest support or resistance.
Mm-hmm. My
Now, if it
strike
plays
price.
out even more, like if it beats where you're going with your target, then 'cause this is your target, which is a small trade. Well, I'm saying small, but from what about 338 to 332, that's a few dollars down.
Yeah,
At minimum, you want to at that point start to consider raising your stop loss in case it did, which it didn't. So you would have still got more profit, hit another historical line, adjust your stop loss again, and you would get stopped out probably somewhere here if you were just trying to day trade it.
right. What was my strike was 325, so probably based on that candle I entered on. Uh,
325. And so it came to 324, but all of this choppiness right here is just a mess. And then
sure
it made
did.
the next
Yeah.
leg. So it probably, and then it played out for you. If it just would have happened on Friday, it would have been better.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm taking up all of, I'm sure there's other people that have questions, so I'll be quiet now. You're awesome though. I love you a lot.
No, you're fine. I didn't have a plan for today, just for us to just chit chat. So someone said, from what I'm hearing, Erica is thinking trading from an intraday perspective, but looking at longer time frames and entering wrong for intraday, but not giving time for the longer time frames. Not all tickers are right for longer time frames, but Erica is reading the chart right, but needs to understand how long to wait. I
Yep.
think that's a good point because you see how we're at 318 right now.
Yeah.
And so that is a good point. I think you have to consider timing too.
Yeah. I think so too. I agree with that. I get really kind of confused when I drop to lower time frames, when you're looking for an entry and yeah, it really messes me up. But
I guess
and
a
I
good
think
point
that's
is,
what
what was
happened
your
here.
plan? Was it to trade just that Friday or just to trade a swing?
Um, no, I wouldn't have been looking for a swing. To be honest, I don't recall my exact thoughts during that from Friday morning, but it would have been my intention would have been just to open and close the trade within the day. And the reason that I bought a contract out a little bit was so that I wouldn't lose to premium burn if it started to go sideways. Then I could hold it overnight or, until next week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Okay.
I'm not comfortable with holding a trade for any length of time, especially right now. So I don't know. I think my thoughts change throughout the day as well when I'm planning a trade because I get confused on the time frames and then I go, well, maybe I should do this. Well, maybe I should do that. Well, okay, well, they always say like give yourself some time. So I don't really have any concrete reason for making my choices,
Okay. Have you
really.
went through the training, the Black Wolf training and all?
Yes,
And
ma'am, I
okay.
have
I
couple
say this.
times.
Pick, pick, wait, I don't know. APP is a beast, also. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind. Maybe pick something a little bit more safe proof while you clean up your entry exit strategies and start to map out why you're even taking a trade. Because sometimes if you don't know for sure why you're taking a trade and where you're going to go with it,
You shouldn't
that'll,
do
yeah, I wouldn't even because it really is just an impulsive trade without
it.
enough thought to it. Now, like even looking at it from here, there is a gap to fill, which would
Yeah.
have made sense to me that they're going to try to push. Obviously, it's choppy because of what we saw in the other higher time frame, but there is a gap to fill about three. So your trade could have played out if you would have held it,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than sell at a loss. But again, you were already chasing it, so it just wasn't a strategic plan. So what I would say is that when you go into next week, maybe just plan for like tickers that will be safe to trade, something you can go affordable, in the money, out the money, but plan to trade based on nearest resistance and support on the time frame you're going to enter the trade. And then go back to the training and really look at entries based on what time frame you're going to be basing
Hmm.
your trade off of. Personally, I've been enjoying the 15-minute, 30-minute, and the 1 hour. But a lot of times I if it's QQQ, I'll be, or SPX, I'm trading from like the 2 minute, 5 minute. So
Yeah.
my targets, I try to be in and out pretty swiftly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think actually now that I see this on the 4 hour, I think that's where my thought process started on Friday, because I saw that gap up and I saw price was coming down. And I remember thinking to myself, it's kind of late, but there's a pullback here. There was a pullback just before this current one. And the red candle is quite strong, this last one before
Hmm.
this little pullback. So to me, that indicated maybe continuation and that it would come down to to that heavy resistance to fill that gap. I'm pretty sure that's what I was thinking when I first looked at this.
Here's something that would have worked for you. Let me see. So even if you followed it right at an alert that says we just broke previous day low,
Yeah.
at 3:38, you could have wrote it down from the previous day low break, and seeing that we were all getting the confirmations, like even pre-low, pre-market low was breaking, then you would have had the trade. But again, also, I think with a stock like APP, you have to be mindful of your strike price too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes out the money, once you get to that sideways trading, it just doesn't. Yeah, but there's still a gap that I could see that they're just going to come to.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, they can still fight all the way through a lot of choppiness, maybe, but to this low right here. But I think the gap right now is going to be this historical resistance
Uh-huh.
support test.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we flipped
Awesome.
this into resistance. Well, this was resistance, and now we flipped it to support. And we're literally doing the break and then the retest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they are going to close the gap. So I see where you now I'm looking at, I see where you're going with it.
Hmm.
If you're going to take the trade and that you see it, try to pay attention to the ATR stop loss, maybe even play with the features where you can even input your contract information here and it'll tell you where to place your stop loss. And then
Hmm.
just see if you get stopped out.
Yeah.
And you may have, again, because entry matters, but at least you've given yourself a chance to see your vision through.
Yeah. I think I'll do that on a paper trade this week instead of with my real money since I lost it.
Yeah, take it slow. I mean, and then again, to try find a ticker that may be a little bit easier. Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're in Webull paper trading, it is like a it feels like you're taking an actual options contract.
Yeah.
And find a ticker that works like that's more affordable, that can give you a better setup to practice your entry exits.
Yeah. I
APP,
think,
like I said, is a beast.
yeah, for sure. I think Zom is one, because I did a bit of study session with Andrea. And I think we're going to look at Zom together tomorrow because oil went up already today, right? It's already up to over 75, I think.
I meant to look at Zom. I'm sorry to tell you, but APP is at 317. I think you had the right vision that they were going to close the gap. I hate that you sold it at a loss.
I
It
know.
just would have been a tough ride because I see how it gets a little scary once that sideways trading happened.
Yeah.
So we said Zom. Zom is, wow, UNH is at 300.
Oh, yeah, that was another one.
Zom is at 118. So they opened at a peak of like, oh, they were in the 120s, 122. I would be patient with Zom at opening. So they're right now at 118.60.
Oh,
You want them to clear this. Confirm that this order block is cleared. 119.91.
oh.
So they've already went through this, but they pull right back down. So 119.91. I don't know. Oh, that was so they hit resistance, which this was my target. I've been covering is to get us to 117.82. But now they've already pushed up to 118.60. I want to see if they hold above 117.82 and then break above this order block right here, 119.91. Then the gap up is going to give you here. And they could possibly be targeting. Is this like their all-time high? I think so. Yeah, so Zom's all-time high was 126.34. I would definitely watch to see if 117.82 holds and if we're breaking that order block on the daily. The best entry is on a pullback on this one, and I would say watching pre-market high and low. Just keep in mind to really break out to the next level, they'll
Mm.
have to clear that order block um,
Before you would place
here,
the trade.
unless they get a good pullback, because again, they basically pushed through all of this pre after hours, so they're already pulling back. I would want to see if we stay above this right here.
Mhm.
And I would follow pretty low, but the thing you have to keep in mind is that even if you took that trade, you're in here unless we clear 119. What was the price? 119.91. Personally, I don't like to trade in this
Yeah,
because the better entry was when we were talking about Zom, here and here.
yeah.
I think Sean may have said to watch this cloud crossover, so I'm sure this is already playing out. By the time we open, we're gonna get these uh crossing over each, well, 12 crossing over the 200.
Yeah,
200's been kind of flat. So your best entry with Zom would have been a swing trade on this floating candle.
yeah,
Or breaking the 200 still would have been good. And then here was the breakout. Like my target has always been to see the 117.82.
yeah.
But yeah, so the winners here are those that were buying it here. Chasing
Hmm.
it here to me personally doesn't make sense. You could probably snipe, um, but you just have to be mindful if you're in this, it could be choppy, and we just need to clear it. So we've already tested it because, wait, did we test it? Yeah, because they were at opening at 122. So, and you can almost picture a wick through this, and then they pulled back to like 118 right now. So
Mm.
watch 117.82, and then if they fall under, just kind of see where they land, and you can map out a trade like that. But I wouldn't chase it in this. Next best entry would be breaking this, and then you have to have your strike price under that 121.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Someone said, I really love Wolf in our training, but there is a big gap in the training for understanding intraday trading and longer contracts. I trade intraday and Wolf is still great for it and gives great info. I don't know who is owner. You want to jump off of mute and talk with us? But knowing I'm from an ODTs. I never can understand who's who based on Zoom and Discord names. Someone said Tesla. Let's look at Tesla. I'll keep Zom on my watch list. I don't want to trade it here. I need a pullback. So Tesla, did we have Robotaxi? What day is Robotaxi? It's kind of sad. I don't know, but I haven't been
Today.
following
It was
today.
today.
Okay. And they're up $2. I feel like when I see Tesla up like $2, it's nothing special. Um, so if I'm not seeing like a big gap move on Tesla, to me, I don't find being up $2 anything special for Tesla. So I'll just probably base everything off of pre-market on Tesla and then previous day high and low. Now, what I can say is that we did get an ARC confirmation on Tesla, and they are playing around the 12 and the 200. And there's a scenario where this can cross down, or we need this 12 to curve back up and head back to this order block here. That's what you need to watch is whether or not we're going to get the 12 crossing under. There's a bit of a support at 310. And if that happens, you just want to see where we find support on Tesla. I don't know. I don't find $2 right now after hours anything to say, oh my gosh, Tesla's bullish or bearish. I would just say mark your pre-high and low. And on Tesla, I would also follow previous day high and low. But
Hey, Fred.
310 looks like a magnet if we do lose support. Hey,
Hey, so I was going to say, I'm Breadman on the forum. Anyway, sorry. Anyway,
no, you're good. Uh-huh.
so the one thing I did notice on Tesla was they had a catalyst of uh, with the preemptive of the robotaxi coming out. I did
Hmm.
see in the news how they're looking at some kind of legislation to get ahead of that. So I'm interested this week to see how they react and what comes out in the news from that.
Are you bullish on them or
I'm kind of
in the
bearish
middle?
because of the whole buy the news,
Hmm.
buy the rumor, sell the news. So I feel like there's going to be a little bit of pushing, but I feel like there's going to be something that comes out that puts them in a chokehold.
I'm gonna watch them too. I
Policy.
am curious to see how they react. I'm gonna set some previous day high and low alerts based on Friday and Thursday because I do want to follow Thursday's move as well. But what I'm thinking is the better move is for them to pull back. I really would like to see them get to 310.
I'll find that and post it in the chat group.
Okay, perfect. 310, 300, I really like on a pullback. I hate to say I want Tesla to pull back, especially if you're bullish already, but I do want them to pull back. I do. There is a fair value gap at 335.50 they could tap. Something to watch if they were going to push, see what they do here. This is on the weekly chart. Um, this wick right here shows that buyers definitely stepped in, but again, that was ahead of Robotaxi. I just want to see how we do tomorrow based on, look at these wicks on a 3 day. A lot of rejection. And then they're buying it up in this area. I want 310 or lower. Anybody in Tesla? Okay, Brett.
Yeah, like I said, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see because, like you said, there's a lot of buying into this rumor stuff. So I'm really waiting to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really waiting to see
And
if they
even
sell off.
so, it hasn't even been anything special play out, in my opinion. The biggest move was when they sold off, and then they recovered here because they hit that order block. I would watch the daily because look at what we're getting on the daily. We're getting that, I mean, we're right wedged in where we want to see the 12 start to curl up because if we start to get that signal where the 12 is crossing under the 200 and they're together. So I like to also watch whenever stocks are in a narrow state and I look at that as this. When we pull far away from EMAs or they pull away from each other, the 12 is pulling away from the 200. When they meet again, it's I'm looking at a narrow state. And so now it's like a make or break. Tesla's either going to do this or they're going to do this. And so that's what I guess I'll be watching just to see what move the market wants to make now that we have Robotaxi out the way. They don't have earnings until the 29th of next month. So,
Plus, it's kind of forming a wedge. What do you call that? A wedge trend line, short term wedge. If you look at the
hmm.
way it's forming there.
Yeah, I'd watch Tesla. I wouldn't be bullish or bearish. I just need to see where it lands. And my thing is we're right in a narrow state on the daily. So there's two things that can happen. This 12 can just keep going down, like price action can keep driving down. Obviously, we have this little fair value gap right here to pay attention to. But other than that, I can't really say from that I'm bullish or bearish. I do like that we have the inverse arc. I do like that we're at the 12 and the 200. We just need to see this 12 start to grow back up and price to reclaim above, not touching the 12. Then the trade would be this trend line, in my opinion, like testing this area and seeing if we'll break the trend line. Because then we have this order block, which we've challenged before that big sell-off in May. And this order block was put here in February. It's worth a watch on Tesla because again, right now in a narrow state, we're just looking to see if we go this way or that way, in my opinion. Anyone else have any input or thoughts on Tesla? You're in Tesla. Okay, Nikki, brave soul. So you're in Tesla bullish? Are you in calls? I think it really just matters when you got into Tesla, right? Like trading it here, you're getting some
I
good.
have a terrible position. I got in it maybe a month ago
Hmm.
and I didn't get out when it went down. So I got in when it was about 360 something and like it dropped. I didn't pay attention to it. It dropped and of course I didn't have my stop loss. So I am in a bad position, but I've been doing like day trade, so I have been making up some of that money, but I'm still at a loss. I haven't sold it because it doesn't expire until like July 18th.
Okay, so you have it until July 18th. So that's next month. Okay, so you still have time on your contracts. You bought it in the 360s. Um, I would say this. One, go study what made you buy in the 360s, only because this is what I mean when I'm not touching anything here. Um, that's it gets to a point where we're chasing if we start to grab it in these order blocks.
Hmm.
I think the way Sean explained it, I was like, it makes sense. If you're in this scenario right here, we just need to see who wins. We don't have to be in the mix of that battle. Let's just see who wins. The move here, and so in this case, obviously the Bears won it. But if if we open up and we're bullish, there is a chance they can come back to this order block here. Um, I'm gonna send best wishes to your contract, at least so you can recover some of your
Yeah.
money.
And,
But
with all the information back then, it looked like Tesla was ready to take off.
yeah,
It looked like it was ready to go to 400. So, I was looking at that, and then the whole Elon and Trump thing, they started arguing, and it just went downhill from there. But I think outside of that, the charts were set up for it to go higher.
I think a lot of people are calling 400 still for Tesla, which is why I would be very, in my case, pleased to see a pullback just because a good entry on Tesla would really be good. Now, one thing you could have done is BC8 at this order block since you had so much time on your contract and you were already holding it.
I
Did
did.
you
I
did?
did.
Okay.
I was buying, but I sold those.
Okay.
So, I've just been, buying them, and then I averaged down, and then I sold
Mm-hmm.
those. So I have made some money, and I made some money, went from 300 to like 320.
Okay,
Um,
good.
but I'm holding three contracts, and I'm down maybe about 6,000.
Let's see.
4,000.
What I do want you to just still remember that even though the signs were saying, and this is for us as Wolf chart traders, all signals may have been saying 400, but that can't happen if we're in this order block. So what we want to always see is price to clear this order block. We'll hit a little bit of resistance here, and then there's your clean run to the 400s right here. A much better. So we want to trade here. We want to see that order block get cleared. And so it's been positioned since February. So always look at the top-down analysis of your trade before you take it. Um, and then I'm sure you've already re went back to see where you could put a stop loss at, but you probably would have got stopped out somewhere when we start breaking in this range here and I mean, no one could have really predicted that Trump and Elon would have been tussling for this sell-off. I didn't have it on my books, but I don't want anyone to start getting caught up in these type of order blocks because I see that with ZOM. And my thing would be like the winners are always the people that bought low. Because now if they're here, they're just sitting maybe in a runner, they're closing positions or raising stop losses just in case. But when we get here and we're trying to buy in, that's their trap for us. They want to trap us here. So I don't want us getting caught up in stuff like this when we either start to pay attention to when we have the best buying opportunities on Tesla early or you get that breakout, right? So the breakout will be clearing this order block and then making that run to the next level here, confirming support, and then you get that next nice pop. So there is a really clean trade on Tesla here if we can clear this order block.
On the one day. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yep, yep. Well,
Yeah.
I do still pray you get your most of your money back, and it's good that you've still not been like spooked out to not try to recover through some additional trades to balance it out. A lot of
Yeah.
people are calling 400, so I'm still not opposed to 400 in Tesla. I just want to see how we do once we get out of this robo-taxi talk, and they have earnings also next month. I'm sorry, yeah, next month. And one thing I've noticed with Tesla, let's see, their last earnings was on the 29th, and look at the candles like ahead of their earnings. As they start getting closer, they started having like a pullback. So I don't know if people were just trying to like, hey, get ahead of getting out in case they dump ahead of earnings. But one thing with Tesla is there is a nice pump that they'll give pre-earnings, but then the market starts to get a little bit more cautious as we get closer to their earnings. I've never really been too impressed with all the moves on their earnings. They did have that one big earning pop, and then it hasn't been as impressive since. So yeah,
So
I think 400 still could be a deal for Tesla. I just don't know when. And I know once we get here, let's just let that clear if you're not already positioned, because this arc still is valid. And so now we just need to make sure that we keep this arc and we also start to reclaim the 12s.
hey, I wanted to add something. I just sent a
Hmm.
screenshot.
I was trying to
So there's
see it. Let's
so
see.
in the chat. So one thing I've done that has helped me a lot, because you've seen some of my plays lately that I've gotten better. One thing I've done is I've added an indicator called AYN, and I've gone in there and there's an indicator setting where you're at the very top once you get it in, and I've got on the daily I have it set at 3. And what I've noticed is that it's like a follow up to the with trend. So right now it's showing that it's in a buy phase, even though it went down. But then if you go up top, look where it gave the sell.
Hmm.
So it gave the sell, did a little bit of a pop up, and then it went down. So I'm kind of looking at this as the bullish, feeling bullish at the moment because it did the buy, did the pop down, and we're kind of starting to get that curl on the RSI that you see in the cloud there of the
Yeah.
20. So again, there's buy momentum based on a lot. It does the same thing like the Wolfram Manage, but it does it differently. But this is the system I've been using. If you go back and look, it gives me confluence in the plays when you get the arcs. Like right here, the buy at the very bottom, right there where your cursor's at.
Yeah.
So it came up, it did come back, started a new order block, fair value gap, and then it took off. Well, I never got a sale. So that's where using that, I'm like, all right, I got to wait for it to do something to give me further confluence. And when that order block come in, that would have been my trigger to, okay, I'm getting calls. Again, this is a whole thing that I've been working on, and I would definitely say test it before you jump. Anybody that's asked me about how I'm doing better, I tell them paper trade with it before you go live with it. But for me, it's been a game changer because
Okay, thanks
basically,
for sharing. It confirms something I'm seeing here with Tesla, which it's following the Wolf Trend moving average too, if you look at it, because this arc is still valid. So any pullback and still being able to hold this arc and not have price start to fall under it and form this inverse arc and not form an actual arc signaling a downside, I think is good. We're at the 200 and holding. I think that's also another good sign. I just need to see them reclaim that 12.
but I
That's
will
why I
say,
think the play is like previous day high and low with
yeah.
pre-market.
But I would say don't just jump into a buy when you see that, and it won't trigger usually till end of day or there's enough confluence. Like when I put alerts, the alerts aren't as good as like the Wolf Trend moving average. Sometimes they come on, sometimes they don't. That was the thing that was noted in the actual form for that indicator. But I'm just saying that that's something that I kind of fall back to as a secondary to the Wolf Trend moving average and all the technicals that we're talking about. Like, how do I feel about this? And then I look at that and go, okay, this is in a buy zone. So if the technicals match, then I feel more comfortable in the play.
Thank you. I like Tesla. I think Tesla, let's
And
see how they do tomorrow. Because it like that's my whole point of worrying about the rumors. What is it? Buy the rumor, sell the news.
yep.
Um, I just want to see how they do after, like post Robotaxi. And then sometimes they try to fake you out of their position or out of your calls and positions and then make that next big pop. So that's why I'm wondering if we'll get a pullback, like a slight pullback, and then that inverse arc still is valid to where although it pulled back, it's gonna give that bounce. Because I still see 400s in their future, if as long as nothing crazy happens with Tesla.
And one more trick to that indicator that helped me, and this is what I'm using daily now, is I have the TradingView 3 windows set up where it's 2 blocks on the left, 1 large block on the right. And I have my 15 or 30 minute block up top, 1 hour block on the bottom left. And then I have 5 minute on the right because that's where my entries are at. And when I get confluence of a buy or sell signal in the 30 minute and the 5 minute, I look to the 1 hour to see if that's also the trend of the day. And that's usually
Okay, so
where
you're seeing the same stock, but just in different time frames.
correct. And then what I do is I don't jump in a buy or sell trigger when I see it in one block. I wait for 5 and 15 to line up, plus the whip trend moving average and all the technicals. But again, like I said, I would paper trade it with that 3 window setup because that lets you know, okay, this is because once it hits that trend right, it'll trigger both buys or both sales. You'll get it in 2 windows out of the 3, but the 1 hour is usually the daily trend confluence. So that's where it can reverse on you. Because
Hmm.
if you're in a strong uptrend and it dips, you might get a sale, but then it'll flip back to a buy. So you got to be careful. But I'm just saying, if you're paper trading with that indicator, because it's probably new for anybody that's messing with it, that's something I would do just to get used to how it flows and how it reacts.
Thank you. Now, someone asked about Palantir. So my theory with Tesla is we really need to see how the market reacts post robotaxi. You can see that we had the inverse arc on the daily chart. Also, you saw now I didn't go through all the time frames, so that may be some homework, but you also saw that we were right at the 200 and the 12 in a narrow state. And so that narrow state always leads to either a break to the upside. Now the EMA is pushing away from the 200 in a bullish move, or you see the cross under where the 12 is crossing under the 200 or the 200 crossing over the 12. And now we're breaking down to the downside. So I love narrow states because the next move, as long as you follow your confirmations, should give you a pretty nice trade. Now, mind you, we're watching it from the daily, but that's honestly even better for me. Palantir, I think is still needing to hold steady above 140. And so they've done some breaks above 140. So what we peaked at with our all-time high now 144 on Palantir. Crazy, crazy how Palantir has just hit 144 this month. I would look to see one personally if Palantir is going to break 140 and hold. So where did we close last week? We closed last week. We opened at 140.03. That's where we hit that peak at 144 and they closed 137. I probably would set my alert personally on Palantir at 140. At 140. That's the top right here. Um, it's pretty high right now to try to chase it. So you could get a squeeze back to retest 144. I wouldn't be so bullish right here. You can't really predict because I didn't even predict that Palantir was going to hit 144. But following news, I don't know what would have kicked it. Okay, defense row grows amid. Okay, so with everything going on with Iran and Israel, we hit that 144 peak. So there could be the bullish move because of what's happening overseas. And now with the US involved, you got to see what that would do for Palantir moving. But on the 3 day and down, I see 140 as the area that we really want to see break and hold for the next move. Otherwise, you're catching it on any pullback at a solid support and follow your confirmation system. But yeah, look at 140. That's your area. You have to see Palantir holding above 140 to see that we go back and challenge and break that 144 high. Otherwise, you're looking for a pullback, and ideally, any pullback to order block is the best for me. Anyone in Palantir or caught that pop on Palantir? We got an arc on the 4 hour. Okay, so we have an arc on the 4 hour. We're at the 12, and we're in a bullish order block from the move that happened. 140 is still the story. So you got to watch this order block. So even if you're trying to short it, just be mindful we're in an order block and you want to stick to your targets, be a little bit more cautious with a downtrend. So let's just say we open Monday and they start a strong pullback, right? Just keep in mind they're in an order block on the 4 hour, so it could get choppy. They could come test the low of that order block, maybe even give you a wick. But ideally, if Palantir can bounce back out of this order block, hold over 140, that's the better scenario. Anyone have any opinion about what I just shared or any input? I think that's gonna be my store. I'm gonna put an alert for 140. And I probably, since I'm already on Palantir, I'll also mark previous day high and low. So Friday they hit 142.24. Could not hold, and so they ended up closing at 137.30. Oh wait, did they close at one? Yeah, 137.30. So I'm probably gonna put an alert for 137.30 as a low. And then if you add that in with your pre-market high and low, why is that not adding up? 136.74 was the low. There we go. You add that in, and then you also add in that 142. Even though they hit a high of 142, for me, I still need to see price above 140. So 142.24. That's how I would mark it out. So I would just follow this. And it's nothing to stare at. You can just set your alerts at those targets and see if price comes to and pay a little bit more attention to Palantir around there. But 140 would be a nice break to start trying to push higher. It's just we'd have to have more people bullish on Palantir at 140, like in the 140s. Otherwise, we need to come back and sweep out some liquidity, probably come to this order block and then make a nice move back up. But remember, on the 4 hour, we are in the order block. What is futures doing? So far, we have respected the previous day low on in ES. Man, they didn't let this tank at all. Got back above previous day low, trying to get to that 12 and hold. I wonder if they'll come target the closing price for Friday, 6,018. But they are down. Just as soon as we opened, although they were at the low, they came back to previous day low, and they're already trying to get back to that 12. That's interesting. I wonder if we're gonna get like a gap up. Yeah, we'll have to see. Which one are you saying they're holding? Pablo. I want to see if they'll get to that closing price or somewhere in this cloud and then start to pull back. I'm glad they're kind of bullish just in case they decide to sell off on Monday. Pop has already happened, so they're not bullish. That's the wrong word to say because the charts are screaming a pullback. What I'm saying is at opening, they recovered a lot of what was already down because they opened at 5,964, and right now we're already at 5,998. Very strong little buy-in. Yep. I'm gonna keep an eye on futures, especially going into tomorrow when we wake up. I want to see how we're doing. Was there any other tickers you guys wanted to look at? Oh, someone said HIMS, so let's look at HIMS real quick. And then I'm probably gonna play with my screener a little bit. And I want to set a watch list based on what Black Wolf is telling us about stocks that could be bullish amidst war. Definitely gonna make sure ZOM is one of my big watches for the week and Tesla too. I like Tesla up or down. The setup seems to be make or break. HIMS, Wow, is Hims going back to test 67? Let me zoom out for a second. For the person that's watching Hims, are you bullish on Hims? So Hims all-time high so far was in February at 72.98.
Yeah, I was bullish.
Bullish. Okay. High of the previous month is $65.89. We're almost at the high of May. Hims is insane. They're trying to give a weekly floater if they just keep at this. Or do we get a rejection and we can't hold above this trend line? That's the weekly, but honestly, if they get another bullish week here, they could create that floater and be challenging their high. I wonder if they're trying to get a new all-time high.
Yep, I was thinking it looked like it had some room around.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I thought it may have some room around.
It kind of does. It kind of could. I mean, the all-time high is here at 72.98. And on the weekly, they broke the trend line, but they had broke it the previous week, so they really would need to hold that. I think the sell-off too, once they had hit a certain point previous week, it was a pullback. So this is a 3-day. Everything is looking around like a break around 65.89. 65.89 might be a good price to put on your chart as an alert.
65.89.
Yeah, did I say yeah, 65.89. And then you can also mark previous day high and low, but I would definitely be watching this resistance right here. 65.89. Look at the week when we came to it in on the week of the 3rd. I'm sorry, on June 3rd. And look what we did here. So that's the price to watch, 65.89. Now again, you can put a pre-high and low from pre-market and also maybe watch the high and low of Friday, but the real break would be if we get above 65.89. And above 65.89, you have 67.45. If that's conquered, then you have that nice clean room right here. We need to see if we have some order blocks on some other time. Oh yeah, look right here.
I saw that, but I was like, it looked like we pushing through something. I don't know. I saw that though.
We are pushing through, but that's a little and we look at that wick. We always do this. I need to study this a little bit more, and I think Sean probably covered it. But those wicks, I have to find the training where he talked about these wicks, and I'll have to ask him. But these wicks, like they'll wick right through it, and then look at the full pullback, and now we're coming right back to it. So we've challenged it, but we really need to start breaking out of that. So your strike prices would have to be strategic because if you're going to enter, this is a floating candle, by the way, on the 4-hour
No, I didn't even
in an
notice
order
that.
block. Yep. So this is your resistance right here. It's a little bit choppy. Seems like the cleaner trade is once they get out of that order block right here. Your strike prices, you probably want to keep it 67 and under, or wait for the break above this next resistance line, 67.37. And then the gap up will be the test in this range. But it's so tricky at these all-time highs. So you just have to really make sure that you do risk management right here. But they could come for a new high. I'd have to follow this one. Liquidity sweep, yeah. That's very interesting that we do have a floating candle. I just, my feelings about trading it in these order blocks is kind of like I'm in and out if I see a trade opportunity in the smaller time frames and everything is adding up to take the trade. But I'm always remember I got to keep a good solid stop loss and be ready to take profit at my targets, because in this I don't like to trade because I see a better opportunity. I personally would want to see them pull back, but maybe they do break it. So I would just set alerts. I don't know if I would recommend, well, I wouldn't trade in this. I need to see it clear. I always say again, the better winners are when you positioned at these lows right here, these support levels right here. But once we get here, it's kind of risk is getting, and the cleaner break is just to let some of this clear out. But we do have buyers showing up because this is a floating candle on the 4-hour. They're even trying to create something on the weekly. So I keep them on watch. Try to get a good healthy pullback, and maybe that'll give you your bullish move. So I'm going to do a little bit of studying on the QQQ chart. I will post that in the tab for QQQ. And then outside of that, I haven't made my watch list. Again, I think it's going to be Tesla. I think it's going to be ZOM, definitely QQQ or SPX. I usually go in between the two, or SPY. And outside of that, I don't have a plan yet. So I'm going to spend some of tonight making my final plan for the week. I really don't want to be all over the place. I just want to pick maybe like my top 5. And that's kind of going to be my focus. If I see something like a good alert in the Discord, then I may pay more attention to it, because that's a heads up that something's happening. So I do like those alerts too. So if I'm not planning to trade something and I see like a 30-minute or 15-minute alert come in, I don't really do the 5 minutes unless that's a stock I was already watching. Then I'll go check it out and I'll plan to see if this is a good point for me to take the trade and where would it be going. So I still try to take a little peek before I enter anything. But yeah, let me know what you guys are planning to trade, or if you see something posted in the Discord. I'll try to find some floating candles out there too while I'm screening. But other than that, I think I'm going to wrap up here. Did anyone have any other closing comments, questions? You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Renette.
Thank you. Appreciate everything.